Hey folks, welcome back to another video. For today I thought maybe it's a good idea to dive a little bit into effect building in the Bitwig grid. It's not only that it's easy to do, it's also fun, you learn something, and maybe you can create some unique effects for your own productions, which is always a win. So let's start. So I made this track yesterday on my German channel, and if you want to watch how I built that, then there's a link in the description. It's obviously only in German, but maybe you can get some informations out of that. So I just use here the whole master just as a just as an example where we put on some audio effects. So I have this channel here, and of course we need an FX grid first. And FX grid features here a mix knob where we can mix in your effect that you are building inside FX grid. And the default setting is basically you have an audio in and you have an audio out, and in between you can hook up some modules here to create some audio effects. And I want to show you what you can do just with some basic modules. So the simplest effect would be to layer two signals, or just create a clone of your signal, delay the signal, and then mix it back together with the original signal. And this gives you some kind of phasing effect. So we need a delay here, for instance this one. And we need a blend module. It just mixes together two signals and, you know, give you the sum out of these two back together. So we hook up this to the output here, and we have the input here. And the benefit or the feature of the blend is basically it tones down the volume of each input, because when you add the same signal together two times, then it's basically twice as loud. So this is toning down the volume basically of each input, so you have the same volume in output when you put in the same audio two times. So now we have to delay here just one signal path, and then bring down the delay time to maybe 1 millisecond. And maybe you can hear it. It sounds like a phaser. You can play around here with the delay time a bit. So this setup is basically a phaser, more or less. If you modulate the delay time, for instance with an LFO module, you get a flanger. Yeah, make it really slow, maybe 2 bars or 3. So this would be a flanger. Then you can also create a chorus effect with that. But for that you have to create multiple voices. So instead of doing this one time, do this multiple times. Like this. And then we modulate maybe each voice differently. This is my creative choice here. Move the modulation here. Something like this. And maybe use your different delay times, 4, 5, 2, 1 here. And then combine each of these signals together. Maybe with a mixer here. And then you can play around here with the modulation speeds and maybe also delay times. So this would be maybe a setup how I would build a chorus effect inside the grid. You create multiple voices, each voice is slightly delayed and also modulated here. So it's basically multiple phasers in a row, or multiple flangers in a row. Okay, so this is the easiest, simple setup for an audio effect in the grid. Another effect you can create is probably something like a filter, a low pass filter, where you use a phaser here, 1 millisecond delay. Yeah, 1 millisecond delay. Close this down, and we have basically here one phaser. And then we use a macro and modulated the delay time. We can modify this. And then we put this in a chain device. Maybe put the modulator here in front of the chain. Something like this. So we can still modify this here. Yeah, nice. And then we make this FX grid here small and just duplicate it. And maybe use a spectrum here so we can see what's going on. Then duplicate this with Control and D. You can see here we have some kind of comp filtering happening when we change the delay time for all the grids. So you can see you need, for a low pass, I think you need exactly one sample delay time for the second path. One sample delay time. But it's not possible in the grid to address exactly one sample. You only have to stick with milliseconds here and to guess roughly how long a sample is, because it depends on your sample rate, what you have set up here basically in your settings. So you have to calculate basically from your sample rate how many milliseconds long a sample is. It's not very precise or accurate, but you can still make some interesting effects with this, you know, playing around here with the delay time. So this would be more like a low pass filter here. But you can create a better low pass probably with just Bitwig own native devices, and I show you this here just as an example. So we still need a chain device because we need to clone here a lot of devices. So we use a tool, and the tool does nothing. It just passes through here the original signal. We put this in a container with Control and G, which is an FX layer here, and create a second path exactly like we did in the grid before. But the second one is basically a time shift device. The time shift device does feature here a samples slider, so we can delay this path by exactly one sample. So we have the original signal and we have the second signal, which is just delayed by one sample, and we mix it back together. So if we clone this now here multiple times, you can see that we lose a lot of high end. Just clone it, clone it, clone it. I press this multiple times here. You can see we have now removed here a lot of high end. So this is without. This is with the filter. So this is how you create basically filters in the computer. So let's remove this here and do a high pass instead. A high pass is basically the same thing, but also the second path here, which is delayed by one sample, is also phase inverted. So we use also a tool device here and just invert the channels, the left one and the right one. Now we can see we lose a lot of low end. And when we duplicate this here multiple times, we create basically a high pass filter. So we have removed everything from here. It would be nice if we could actually use a macro here and modulate the delay time of the time shift device, but it's not possible because the time shift device is dealing with the latency compensation of the DAW, and it's probably not possible to do. But anyway, you can create these effects easily here with some tools in Bitwig, and it's also for learning purposes, so you know exactly how certain effects work. So let's remove all of that here again and go back to the FX grid. So we created basically a phaser, a flanger, a chorus effect, low pass, high pass. But again, maybe we go back here to the high pass and do this again in the grid to show you that you can create some similar effects. It's maybe not possible to create a clean high pass filter, but it still sounds maybe creative. So we have a delay here of maybe 0.01. 0.01 ms. Something like this. So we phase invert the signal here also with the multiply and the constant. So this should be now a high pass filter, more or less. But this time we can modify here the delay time with the macro. And then you go back into the sounds more like a phaser. Maybe go to 0 here and put this in bipolar, unipolar range. So something like this. And then we can close this down here and do the same thing again with the chain device and just multiply this. So we have to, don't have to do all the patching here, I know, multiplying all these modules 50 times. This time we can put here this macro in front of that and then just duplicate this here. So the more you increase delay time, you create more like a comp filter effect. This sounds more like an extreme flanger. Yeah, but maybe creative enough, or there's room enough probably to create some creative effects for yourself. FX grid, okay, back to this one. So we have basically created the chorus, a flanger, phaser, low pass, high pass, some comp filters, and of course can use comp filter here. Nothing more than just a delay with a feedback path. So the delay time is basically here mapped to the frequency, and the feedback or the resonance here is more or less the volume for the feedback. So you can increase volume of the feedback path, and you can also phase invert here the feedback signal if you want to. So it's just boiled down into one device, which is called comp filter. So let's put this here, put So it sounds like the same, right, as before. Also, all pass is kind of the same thing. It's basically two signals mixed together, and one signal is delayed and phase inverted. Which gets you this kind of blurring effect. And you can create reverbs with this. So just using your multiple all-pass devices, different delay times. It sounds like, you know, like a reverb. But even better would be to stereo split the signal in front here, to have left and right channel available, and to stereo merge the signal again at the end here. So we have only reverbed or modified the left channel here, but we can also modify the right channel and dial in different delay times here for the right channel, so we have kind of a stereo effect. It's a nice little reverb. It's more like a diffusion path here. Maybe we have to add a mod delay here. And we go here to milliseconds and use the feedback. We can also try to create our own feedback. We need the mod delay for that. Let's delay by 0.02 milliseconds and bring this back in here in the front with the blend. And maybe use a volume amplifier here at the end. Can create very long delays. Maybe also add a filter here. So you have to experiment with some of the devices, of course, and every reverb is different, and there are so many possibilities how to create reverbs. So we can add here distortion, filtering in front, after, maybe also do these patches here twice or double the patches and then feed it back together, or make one patch for the left channel, one for the right, then bring it back together and so on. You can make it as complex as you want. And then you can use the mix knob here and slowly mix in your dry signal. Always a good idea is to use a delay and modulate the delay time. Gives you this, you know, pitching effect. An LFO. Maybe it's also a nice idea to do this in front, the reverb. Maybe add the low pass here. And there you have it. Long ass delay. Long ass reverb. Maybe perfect for drones. I don't know. You can feed in whatever you want and you get a drone out of it. Yeah, maybe use here a snare. Let's see how this sounds on the snare. Yeah, nice. Okay, so this is basically how you create reverbs and such effects. Okay, let's put in FX grid here again. Because we just talked about delay and pitch effects, you can create easy pitch effects with a long delay, which delays the signal. But when you offset here, this one, which is the delay time, you can use an LFO. Maybe use a ramp and modulate this delay time here. And depending on what kind of LFO time you choose here, you can slow down the signal or increase it. That's maybe too fast. So this is also something which is very nice when you mix in basically the original signal and a signal that's pitched up 1 octave or pitched down 1 octave. Could be also interesting. I did this a lot with some of my presets, with the piano delays, for instance. I use this a lot. Okay, what else? Distortion, maybe. There's an effect on module called curve here, which is interesting because you can bring... Let's use an oscilloscope here. You can force the audio signal on a different path here. Which sounds probably horrible. So this is something you can do. You can also use a min-max module here, which gives you the max output, gives you basically all the positive values, and the minimum output gives you all the negative values. But you can use the curve, for instance, and map maybe everything here, the low differently, like this. which leads to probably some interesting results. I have no idea if this is actually usable. The add. See how this sounds. So yeah, this could be a distortion effect. Probably not that useful, but you know. So another thing you can do is to play around with delays, which is also a strong effect. We have different delays here in the grid. For instance, the long delay, you can switch here the beats. Delay units, 16 notes, 8 notes, 4th notes. Maybe go to 16 notes here. And just mixing them together, we have like a multi-tap delay. For instance, we have here the original signal, then use a second signal. Or maybe instead of a mixer, we use here a merge. This would be better. Also explained this in another video, I think. Let's use multiple inputs here, 3, 4. Another one. And have here on each delay different settings. And when you use a value knob here, select this and go to nearest, then you can step through all the delays here and just offset each line a bit differently. You can see it's more or less like a beat repeater. Maybe we use a dice module here and a trigger. So we generate every 4 beats or 8 beats here a different value. Let me use this here for the beat repeater. Maybe 16 notes. Right, and you have like a stutter effect, or maybe go to 8. We have something like this. It's also very creative, I think. Also nice on drums, of course, to create some chopped up beats. Easy thing. Can create multi-tap delays by just using maybe the mod delay and the mixer, like I wanted to do it before, but original signal, delayed signal. But here we implement also a filter, maybe an SV. And maybe a long delay here to delay everything. It would be nice to actually modulate this, huh? LFO. Bar, 2 bars. Maybe exchanges for random mod here. Oops. And you can mix in the original signal here. So you can create creative delay effects here with different sounds on each delay tab or delay line, and then combine it back together and, yeah, create these nice effects. Maybe add the reverb, like we did it before in the video. Add the long reverb here, and then this delay line, mix it slowly in, maybe a pitch effect in there, and then you have a nice little unique reverb effect. Also, the recorder is something you can use. I think I showed this before in a video. I'm not sure actually where I showed it, but I do this all the time. So you have a recorder and maybe use a trigger and trigger the recording here multiple times. Maybe go to uneven numbers, then trigger the playback, maybe faster rates. It's also something you can play around with. You can also say with the gates module here, switch it to gates mode and record maybe the first half of the beat. Then playback here with the trigger mode multiple time. So basically they can decide with the top gates module where you want to record in your sequence. So this is basically just 1 bar, because the grid here is at device phase length 1 bar. So this is exactly 1 bar. And you can decide, oh well, I want to record here only the last half of the bar. And then you can decide with the trigger where you want to play back what you recorded here. And maybe use here also gate repeat. gives you this kind of sound. But then again, you get your gates signals, so we can also clock synchronize this or clock quantize this to maybe a 16th grid. Triggers, gates, 16. Or maybe it's 32. Also change the gate length. Of course, you can modulate all this here with macro knobs or maybe in a sequence. Let's use here a step mod maybe. And then, yeah, move on with that. But you can hear there's some small clicks happening because of the zero crossings, probably. But because we have here a trigger signal, we can just use an AD here in between, which is just an envelope with the amplifier, and then trigger just this. Just use here a slow attack. If you think this should be a different length here, then you can use a scaler. And use a phase in. And then disable these two inputs here. And then you can slow it down. Maybe make the step count longer, 16 steps. And you can put here also on the post FX maybe delay. And also duplicate this and put this also in here just on the effect. We have the same effect twice in a row. Maybe needs an amplifier peak limiter here at the end. I'm losing some volume. Clicky. That's maybe too much. But you can see you can easily combine then multiple of these effects you created and, you know, create a richer sound, more interesting, more complex sounds. Just by repeating and recording here different parts of your face position. So that's it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching. With this video, of course, I want to encourage you to try out FX Grid more for yourself. Create your own small little effects, combine it with other effects you did, and maybe you get a more unique sound out of a digital environment just by using Bitwig and Grid. And yeah, hopefully you learned something new. And if you liked the video, then please leave a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel, maybe think about a Patreon subscription. All the links are down in the description if you want to. And there's also a link to our Discord, to the Bitwig Discord, where you can share maybe your experiences in the FX Grid, show off your new discoveries, and maybe get some tips and tricks there. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.